Welcome to the Marion Show. Hi, Miss Tammy.
Hi.
Hi, Miss Graham.
Hi.
I understand that you are both seventh grade science teachers.
Yes.
Can you please elaborate on the learning theories and cognitive processes that allow you to support your students' learning?
Okay, so one of the learning theories is constructivism, and constructivism is the knowledge that we actively construct by individuals or a group, meaning that it's shaped by their own experiences. So an example of constructivism would be when students are learning about the water cycle. So they are aware of the weather and what it looks like when it's about to rain through their individual experiences. And I would go over the water cycle and talk about condensation and then precipitation. To remember the cycle order, the students would use their own knowledge from their experiences. These self-experiences would be something like when the student goes outside and they notice that there's a lot of dark clouds out, and then from that they can infer that it would eventually rain. They can use this knowledge to help them remember that after condensation, which is when the clouds are filling up with water, precipitation will eventually fall. An application of constructivism is when we're doing group work and by having like students work in teams or even in pairs. And we can also have the students speak in the discussion-based class, such as like Socratic seminars, and we can also try to make that experience, their experiences, relevant to our students.
So another learning theory is behaviorism, which is behaviors are learned through operant conditioning, which is a form of learning. An individual would change their behavior because of the consequences of it. The consequences may be positive or negative reinforcement or punishment. For instance, a student is whispering to a friend sitting nearby. I can see the whispering is beginning to disrupt students in close proximity. I would remind them about their behavior by making eye contact with the student while teaching and put a finger to my lips to signal that the student should stop talking and follow instructions. When a student continues to talk to peers, I would relocate the students to a seat near the front of the room, away from friends and closer to me. The students continue to clown at the desk, make faces and whispering comments to no one in particular. If that happens, I would approach the desk and tell the students quietly that if he or she continues to talk and distract other students, she will need to stay after class for a teacher conference, which will probably make the student late for lunch. The student's behavior improved immediately. This is an example of removal punishment because it is decreasing the student's behavior once they realize that a privilege is being taken away from them. However, if a student is constantly participating and receiving great test scores, I would praise him or her. This encourages him or her and other students to also engage in class materials and do even better on the test. This is an example of positive reinforcement because both for the students and their peers, response increases after being praised for their work. So application is being applied to this learning theory by me enforcing rules so that students don't act out, also giving visual and verbal cues like shushing them or telling them to be quiet.
Another learning theory is information processing, and information processing suggests that for the information to be firmly implemented in their memory, they must pass through three stages of the mental processing, and those three stages include sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. And sensory register holds everything that you are exposed to for just like a second or two. And short-term memory is also known as the working memory. It holds information for 20 seconds up to a minute. And the long-term memory is unlimited capacity and it holds information indefinitely.
I would like to elaborate on that with examples. For sensory register, if a student is distracted because they have just gotten into an argument with their mother, it causes the class materials to only reach their brains for a couple of seconds until they soon forget it. As for short-term memory, as a student walks into my class, they repeat the steps of the scientific method to themselves until they sit down to take the quiz. However, when they finally get a chance to start the test, they forgot what they repeated. As for long-term memory, when taking their final test, the students will have to recall old information from the beginning of the school year, along with the most recent content.
The applications for information processing is something that we like to call wait time. And wait time is when the teachers would pause in the middle of the class material or after posing even a question so that we can give our students some time to process their ideas and like their answers or anything that they have to include on what we just provided them
Now that you've given me some insight into the learning theories, what are some cognitive processes that allow you to support your students?
Some cognitive processes that we use are known as self-regulation. And self-regulation is basically the process of taking control or monitoring and evaluating your own learning behavior. An example of self-regulation is when the students would remind themselves of the importance of doing well and later promising themselves for a reward after they finish their work. So, for instance, I would teach students to reinforce themselves for appropriate behavior, and I would do this by providing them with guidance on how to effectively study and by encouraging them to make their favorite activities, such as hanging out with their friends, and making that activity as a reward. So I would tell them, okay, after you guys finish reading the assigned chapter, your reward would be to go hang out with your friends. An application for self-regulation would be that I would give reminders about when assignments are due so that the students can be more proactive and do their work earlier rather than procrastinating on it.
Another cognitive process is metacognition, which is the awareness and understanding of one's own thought process. First, I would give students practice recognizing what they don't understand, because being confused and being able to identify that they don't understand something is an important part of developing self-awareness. I would take time at the end of class and ask them what was confusing about the material that we explored today. This not only jumpstarts metacognitive processing, but it also creates a classroom culture that acknowledges confusion as an important part of learning. Also, I would provide them with opportunities to reflect on their coursework. The development and change of their thinking skills allows students to learn to recognize that their own cognitive growth. The application that I would apply to this cognitive process is pacing class materials so students have time to evaluate themselves and their progress.
That's fantastic. That's all the time that we have today. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.